Welcome back, everybody. The rare midweek video for you here. I do want to answer some questions that people submitted through Moodle about this poetry essay. I will say, I think I've said this a couple times now in my last few videos, but I am getting a little concerned about the relatively low number of people who I'm seeing submit some of this stuff. Maybe it's only natural this time of the semester. I know it's a long semester. It starts to feel like it's dragging a little bit. We had spring break. It's easy to get disengaged. The weather's getting nicer. All of that stuff. So I know it's easy to kind of lose focus at this point in the semester, but I'll just remind you all that we are close. We're about to hand in our second out of three essays, so we're going to be only doing one more major essay for the class. So we are kind of turning. We're not in the home stretch yet, but we are on the last kind of lap coming around there. So I would encourage you all to stay committed. Make schedules for yourself for when you're gonna work on stuff. I always make lists for myself of what I'm gonna work on. Have your calendar so you know when everything is due, and just you've put in so much effort to the course already. So let's make sure we keep it on track. It'd be a shame to have put in so many hours of work for the class and then let the grade drop right here towards the end. So stay committed. As always, I am accepting late work, so don't give up hope. If you're worried about your grade, there's still time to hand this stuff in. Again, please reach out to me if you have any questions. No one signed up for my meetings this week, so I don't know. I'm hoping that you guys got this, that you just are so confident in what you're doing that you don't have too many questions, but that makes me a little worried. Anyway, so I guess this is going to be a short video because I only got like three questions to ask, and they were all kind of around a similar topic. But yeah, I guess I'll get into them here. Okay, so the first question. This person asked, are articles like Letter from Birmingham Jail and Message to the Grassroots considered poems in regard to the essay? No. Those are, one of them is a speech, one of them is a letter. We can think of them more as articles or essays. Those are not poems, right? Obviously, a poem is not going to be written in paragraph form, making an argument about politics or something. Poem is going to be, we know what poems look like, right? So I'll say it once again that the five poems that we've read, Harlem, Kitchenette Building, It's Nation Time, Mississippi Goddamn, and Citizen, those are the five poems, right? I would choose from those. If you want to bring in maybe one outside poem, I can kind of deal with that. Maybe send me an email and I'll let you know what I think. But I think that could work. But I want you using at least one or more of those five poems. Okay. So those are the ones those are the poems. Message to the Grassroots, Letter from Birmingham Jail, that other essay, the Black Arts Movement that we read, Making Civil Rights Harder. Those are all articles or essays. Those are sources. And this person, I think, kind of anticipated this because then they went on to say, or are they just documents we should supplement information on our essay from? Yes, these are more supplements, right? So the goal for the essay is to make an argument about what the political ideas of the poem itself are, right? And to do that, I think it would make sense to look at something like Message to the Grassroots or Letter from Birmingham Jail to help us understand what the political statements of the poem are, what the politics of the poem are. The poem needs to be the main thing. We're still doing literary analysis. That means that we need a thesis, we need an argument about the poem. And then these other essays, I think, will help us to make that argument. Yeah, so those are more like, you can use them as evidence, use them to back up what you're saying about the poem. But I think that they could very well be in almost any essay you're going to write, just because it's so important. And if we're going to understand what the politics of the poem are, we probably need to understand something about what the politics, like the popular political positions during the civil rights movement were. So by showing us, how the poem thinks something similar to Malcolm X, you're still showing us here's what the political ideas of the poem are. And we're going to look at this speech by Malcolm X to help us understand that. So keep your focus on the poem, keep your thesis about the poem. use those couple of readings as sources, as essays. So this person went on, still in the same question. They said, you mentioned we need 3 sources and quotes. These 2 documents would not count as peer-reviewed sources, right? So I'm going to actually say yes, because if you look back at what I said on the assignment sheet, I say, I think that I forget if I said 1 or 2, but I said a certain number of the sources needed to come from either a peer-reviewed journal or a book. So these 2 things would appear in books, you know, like I know I gave them to you just in essay form, but Letter from Birmingham Jail was published in a book called Why We Can't Wait that Martin Luther King wrote. So that's from a book, right? And like Malcolm X speeches, I'm sure there's a collection of Malcolm X's speeches that we could buy or whatever, right? But I just scanned that stuff and gave it to you. So those would count. They would count in that category. So if you use Letter from Birmingham Jail and Message to the Grassroots, you have satisfied that part of the requirement, that they be from a peer-reviewed journal or a book. Journals or books is what I want. I was just, again, trying to make sure that we avoid relying on these like online summaries or Spark Notes or lit charts or whatever it is. Again, I don't want you guys to use those kind of study guide summary type things. Avoid those. Stick with journals, books, the stuff that I've given you for the class, and things like that. Okay, so oh, and then the last part of this question was, would we still need to add a citation for these documents if we use them in the essay? Yes. If you use a quote from Message to the Grassroots, you need to cite it. Okay? You can go back and watch my video that I did a number of weeks ago on research and citations, where I tried to explain that as much as I can. Also, if you go back to week 5 on Moodle, under week 5, I have a link to the Purdue OWL website that has the information on citations, and I also have a link to the databases that you can use. So yeah, when I say 3 other sources outside of the poems, again, that could be something like Message to the Grassroots or Letter from Birmingham Jail, or it could be an essay that you find on your own, right? Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the databases. So like I said, if you go back to week 5 on Moodle, there is a link that will take you to the databases. But you can find it if you just go to the Bergen Library page. It then says databases. So I said this at the time, but I'll say it again. I'll give you 3 databases that I think you should use, because if you click on that link, you see there's a whole bunch. There's dozens of databases that we have. So the ones that I would recommend are, number 1, JSTOR, JSTOR. And it's the one that says like literature and language next to it, because we're doing literature, right? So that one's going to be more helpful. So JSTOR is one that you can use. Another one is on there called Academic Search Premier. And then in parentheses, it says EBSCO. I think I talked about this one before. It was EBSCO, EBSCO. But if you look at the databases now, you'll find it under A, under Academic Search Premier. So that's one you can use. And then the last one I'll give you is ProQuest. PROQUEST, ProQuest. And there's other ones that would work for this, but I think those 3 are the ones that I have experience with. And I think you should be able to find everything that you need through there. If you go to JSTOR and you just type in Martin Luther King, you type in Malcolm X, you type in Black nationalism, you type in civil rights movement, you type in civil rights poetry, any of these terms, I'm pretty confident that you'll find something good. Now, again, this researching, it takes a lot of time. I know we don't like it. I know it's annoying to do. I know it takes forever. That's just how it is, though. So don't kill yourself looking for the 100% perfect article. It might not be out there. But try to find something useful. See if there's anything with a quote that at least helps you, at least gives you some kind of background information, tells us something about the time period, or something about the poems, right? That's the other option. Like for certain poems, like It's Nation Time, Harlem, I think you can find people writing about this stuff. So you can look either for information about the civil rights movement or Black nationalism or something like that, or Malcolm X or Martin Luther King, or you can look for sources that talk about the specific poems that you're talking about. So that's kind of how I would approach using those databases. So I'm thinking about this because the third question I had, this person said I had a problem finding sources for my topic and it made it difficult to write enough pages. So another thing I would point you to is I did send you guys an email. I don't know if you saw this, but I sent an email to everybody like I don't know a week or two ago, and it had a number of essays attached to it. A few of them were some of the stuff about the FBI and their actions during the civil rights movement. So if that's relevant to whatever you want to talk about, you could use those essays. But I also attached this essay called "The Black Power Movement" by Peniel Joseph. If you're writing about anything connected to Black nationalism, if you're writing about It's Nation Time or Mississippi Goddamn, especially, I would 100% read this essay. Really, I think that essay is gonna be super helpful, regardless of what you're writing about. But it's attached to this email that I sent to everybody, so you got to check your Bergen email to see that. And it's this essay called "The Black Power Movement," and it just has a lot of great information about what Black nationalism was and how it manifested itself, and it talks a little bit about some of the specific figures too. So I think that's a great essay just to get some background information, and it also includes a lot of other, like it references a lot of other essays and books and stuff that you can try to see if you can find on the internet. So that's something I sent to you guys in an email. And then I was just thinking about sources that might be helpful. I didn't assign it for the class, but I think Martin Luther King's speech, "I Have a Dream," I think that would be helpful. I think I've referenced it a bunch of times, especially if you're writing about Harlem or Kitchenette building, which both focus heavily on this idea of the dream of civil rights, right? In Kitchenette building, it's in quotation marks and it's capitalized. So you could read Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, or I don't know, maybe just type in like "dream" and then "end civil rights movement" and see what comes up, and maybe you can find some articles just talking about this idea of the dream of civil rights and how it changed over time and who talked about it and what it meant and people being critical of it and whatever. And I think that would help us to understand a lot with Harlem and Kitchenette building. So yeah, you could check out "I Have a Dream." Really, any Martin Luther King speech might help you. So you can just you could just type in like famous Martin Luther King speeches, and read through some of that and see if it helps, see if it syncs up with anything you see in the poems. Oh, one other poem I should have mentioned. You also can write about "We Shall Overcome" if you want to include that. Even though I had us watch the video and not really read the lyrics, if you want to write about "We Shall Overcome," if you want to contrast it to "It's Nation Time" like we did in class, or if you want to, maybe connect it to Martin Luther King and the more nonviolent Christian side of the civil rights movement, "We Shall Overcome" could be helpful in that kind of way. So you can also use that. I'll add a sixth one, a sixth poem slash song that we can use. So yeah, but like I said, the biggest thing with the research is just that you have to set aside the time to do it. You've got to give yourself a few hours to look at this stuff because not only do you need to type in searches and amend your search and change what terms you're putting in, but you also are going to have to read through some of this stuff, and some of it might not be useful, and use your best judgment to try to only read things that you think are going to help you. But inevitably, you're going to read some stuff that maybe it's interesting or it's kind of related, but it's not actually going to make it into the essay. And that's kind of how this works. Like, there is a pretty large expectation of research with these essays, and with most college essays, I would say. So, even though I'm telling you that you need 3 sources in the essay, I would expect that you'd have to read, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 essays before you find 3 that actually help you. So give yourself enough time to do this. I know it's annoying. I know you don't want to do it, but I don't know. When I do some research, when I find something good, it's exciting. I don't know. It's interesting to me at least. But maybe that's just because I'm a nerd. So I don't know. Try to find some of that. But again, think about what terms you're putting in when you're looking for research. Use things like civil rights movement. Use things like Black nationalism. Look for people writing about the poems that you're writing about. It's out there. These poems are very famous. They're very old, most of them. Even Citizen was pretty famous. You can probably find people writing about that if you're including Citizen in your essay. So find outside information about the movement. Go back and look at that email that I sent you and read the Black Power movement, that essay, if you're looking for more sources. Look up other Martin Luther King Jr. speeches. "I Have a Dream," especially. And yeah, you gotta put in the time. It takes some elbow grease to find good sources. But again, stay away from those summary study guide type things. Let's get some real academic research here. So there's also the other thing I should mention is that essay we did, the Black Arts Movement. I think that is an excellent source for almost any essay. If you're writing about, especially if you're writing about its nation time, I would 100% use the Black Arts Movement essay, if only because Amiri Baraka slash Leroy Jones gets quoted in that essay, and he gives this quote about how he thinks you need to overhaul the whole system if things were going to be equal. So I think that there's a direct connection there between the quote from him in that essay and the poem that we read by him. So I would definitely use that if you're writing about its nation time. That's another really good one. Um, but you got to set aside some time. You got to be willing to do the reading. But the stuff's out there. So send me an email if you're still really having trouble with this. But I think I gave you guys kind of a pretty good amount of research to use for this. Again, with Letter from Birmingham Jail, Message to the Grassroots, and that email I sent you. So make sure that you're thinking about how all that stuff can relate to the poems. And yeah, I think that's it for now. See you all later.